This is the Big Chat Small Talk podcast for dynamic, engaged minds who love thought-provoking discussions about big life challenges in an approachable way. Join me, Bernie Bennett,
and me, Louise Anderson, to challenge your own perspective, to share insights and wisdom on navigating life's demands. Let us have a big chat about important issues in a small talk way. Pregnancy and birthing. Pregnancy and childbirth are incredible experiences filled with joy, anticipation, and yes, a fair share of challenges. Whether you are a first-time parent-to-be or a seasoned pro preparing for another addition to the family, we'll be talking about this in today's show. Is the challenge of having a baby or family really worth it? So,
was it worth it?
Was it worth it? Because you got a little bit of an interesting backstory on that one.
Well, do you know what? I have to say that when I met my hubby and we were getting married and stuff, I made it really clear that I didn't want kids. Now, for my own kids, please close your ears for fear that you think that you weren't wanted. It really wasn't so much that they weren't wanted. I mean, I wasn't really a very, that you have a lot of women that are very, I want kids, da, 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 da. That was never me in my early 20s. But it was very much not so much about what came out at the end, but more the process that you would need to go through. It was the idea of being pregnant. It was the idea of, peeing every 2 seconds. It was the heartburn. It was, oh my God, being big and fat. Although having said that, I was quite a small, petite person at top. So that wouldn't have been a bad thing to have been slightly bigger on top.
It was the pros.
Yeah, well, there are some pros. There was the morning sickness, the foggy brain. But I have to say, it was the thing that kind of nailed it for me was the massive head coming out of such a small hole. But it wasn't, that all of that said, I got into my 30s and then I kind of settled into the idea of having a child. So there is a bit of when is the best time to have a child? What do you think?
Well, that's the thing. It's the whole list start from the conception. That's where that ties into. You have to make that decision when is the best time to have a child. And there are certain factors with that, finances, life experiences, biological, have you even reached your career goals? I personally think there is no right time to have a child. It's just like when it happens because even if you've got everything in place and you think everything is perfect, when that baby comes along,
it throws everything in the air.
Everything is thrown out of the balance. And now my personal view. I always felt like, I became a mother in my 30s, and having had my last child at 38, I really did feel it. And I actually say to myself, if I could go back, I probably would have had my children all in my 20s and bam, 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 one after the other.
See, there are those pros and cons with being a young mum versus an older mum. And that's quite an interesting thing to actually have a look at right now. Yeah. So if we look at the pros for being an older mum, I think we're a lot more patient. Some of us are.
You think? I'm not.
More life experience. We're qualified. We have the ability to now have achieved so much in our careers that after the baby is or the child is at a certain age, you can kind of walk back into a career at kind of very much the same level that you kind of left, where if you have it at a younger age and you don't kind of get your footing off to a great start and then you have babies, it's like you're kind of starting at the bottom of the run again, no? What do you think?
Well, I know what you're trying to say. On paper, yes, that's definitely, it looks like that. But having done the career, got to a certain point, I'm not saying that I got to any heights by the time I had a child, but I had done my professional training. Yeah. So I knew I could always go into a role at a certain level of salary. But I have to say it's difficult because when you're having a child, especially by the time I had my third child and the level that I had worked up to, I became a senior professional at that point, there's still that expectation. Regardless of whether you've got children at home, you've not slept through the night, there were times.
Get the job done.
Especially
don't care.
you don't care. And you've survived on 1 hour's sleep. Or the gastric flu bug has made its way through the house and you've got 3 children up where everything is coming out of every orifice you can think of. No one gives. No one gives a toss. So I don't know. Again, it just makes me think, is there any perfect time? I have to say, as an older mum with that full-on career, I do feel a bit split. I want to still be able to do my job and do it well, but there's a compromise because then I still want to be the best mum that I can possibly be.
Yeah.
So, I can see the benefits of waiting until you're a bit older, but it's still not that easy.
Well, whether you're in your early 20s, a young mum or an older mum, and an older mum, bizarrely, is classed as 35 plus. I really don't see that as that old.
It's the eggs. They're classed as geriatric.
Geriatric eggs.
What on earth do they look like?
God. But regardless of what age that is, all women experience conception issues. And it's not, in fairness, no, should I say all women? Not all women, actually. Some, it just happens straight away. But there is that idea that if the older that you get, the more difficult that it gets. And IVF sometimes kicks in, but it can also happen at a younger age. I know we have a caller that has left us a lovely message about her experience with IVF. I think it's Tracy from Ireland. Should we listen to that?
Hi, my name is Tracy. When I was 33, myself and my husband said we'd start trying for a baby. And like everybody, we thought, it was going to happen in the first couple of months. Anyway, we tried for about 2 years and nothing happened. So we said we better go see maybe a specialist and see is there a problem. So we went to see a specialist and he said, you're 35 now. So I think at this stage, you should really try and maybe get a bit of help. So he said the first thing I suggest is you go on a drug called Clomid. So Clomid is a hormonal drug, and what it does is it sort of ensures that you ovulate every month, because sometimes that can be the problem. So I did that for a couple of months and then nothing happened. And so then they said, well, let's try another process called IUI. So we tried IUI, which is they check you and they monitor you and then they see when you're ovulating, and then they get the prepared sperm and they insert it manually into your uterus, and then you just hope for the best that when you ovulate something will happen. And unfortunately I did 4 of them and nothing happened. So then they said, well, the only other option really now would be to go down the IVF road. So we said, right, we'll go down the IVF road. At this stage now, I was prepared to do anything, So we went down the IVF road. Now, the IVF can be very hard, and it's very emotionally draining and physically hard to do on your body. So you take this drug to start with, which strips your body of all its hormones, and it basically sends you into early menopause. And then when you're just about to start the menopause, you start the injections, which then boosts all the hormones back into your body and gets your body ready then for the transfer of the embryos back in, and hopefully it'll work. So I did that 3 times, and unfortunately it didn't work any of those 3 times. So the 4th time we went to a meeting and they said, we're going to try a different thing. We're going to do the IVF, but we're going to try another thing called assisted hatching, which means they thought the shell on my eggs was too hard, and that's what the problem was. The sperm couldn't penetrate. So they manually took all the eggs out when the time was right. They shaved down the eggs so that the shell wasn't as thick, and then they put the eggs and the sperm together, and then they inserted the whole lot back in. And thankfully on the 4th occasion it worked, and I ended up with beautiful twin boys, and I was absolutely over the moon, and it was a success story. So all I'll say to anybody out there that's trying the IVF road, it's not an easy road to go down, but it worked for me, and hopefully it'll work for you. That's it. That's my story. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Oh, I've got chills down my spine. That's just so sweet.
That is such a lovely tale.
It really is.
It doesn't always go as smoothly for every woman, does it? So
it doesn't.
It's great that we've got this kind of technology that can actually step in and assist and just get every woman that child that they've been longing for. She got two.
Yeah.
she got
more
two,
than what she
two for the price.
probably, but exactly. Two for the price of one, as they say. Should we explore the pros and the cons of being a younger mum quickly, or because we covered the ones for an older mum?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So, pros and cons: younger mum, more energy, biologically better, the body snaps back, etc. and fertility is higher. What do you think the cons would be?
For a younger mum, inadequate social network, probably a younger mum, grandmother themselves, so they're probably out working and not at home. An older mum's got a mum that's going to be probably retired and at home, so you've got that benefit of just dropping them off and going out to the movies, but which is really
not
lovely.
Always.
Sometimes. But yeah, a younger mum's probably got a network of friends that are also having children at the same time. I suppose that can be beneficial as well, because you can kind of share the load among friends, but less likely to have been settled in their careers, so financial difficulties. I'm not saying everyone, do not leave us a message.
That's true. Yeah, I can see that as well. But then I do think, like I was saying earlier, I think if I wish I had done mine in the younger years, because I would have had that energy. I feel like I just don't have any energy. When I was in my 20s looking after my little cousins, I did everything with them, played with them, coloured, painted, ran around in the park, didn't have much money. So the fun times was like playing rounders, for example. I look at my kids now and I'm like, here's the tablet. Go away. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, that was just like a little anecdote from me. But
right. So that was conception. And like we said, it's not an easy road for every woman. But after conception comes the big
P.
Pregnancy. And looking like an elephant for about 9 months. You're not. How long are elephants pregnant for? Is it a whole year? Is it 2 years?
I think is it 2 years?
So we've really got a good deal.
We've got a much better deal, and their young tend to stay with them for a long time thereafter, post birth too. Like
our young stay with us for about 18
years. God, well, in today's society, they're saying even longer.
Oh, God.
Oh, with the cost of living and all.
So but how was if we have a look at trimesters each one, how was your first, second, third, or was there any one particular one that stood out for you?
So when I fell pregnant with my first child, I didn't even know I was pregnant until about 6-7 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. And I know it's weird, but I thought something was off when I didn't want to have my morning coffee. And I have to have my morning coffee.
Right.
And then I smelt the coffee and it was like, ugh, this is disgusting. And then something went off in the brain. It's like, what's going on here? Then I decided to think, hang on a second, I haven't had a period. And then boom, found out I was pregnant.
Oh. Was that happy news? You weren't sure? It was unexpected?
It was very unexpected. We were about to embark on a around the world trip.
Oh,
we were
did that
just
scupper that.
Yes, it did. Oh, yeah, no. Totally. Yeah. Totally. But once I got over that pregnancy was in my early 30s. And it wasn't too bad, although I did develop gestational diabetes.
Okay.
But the first trimester, I remember feeling the morning sickness. But I would say my third pregnancy with my son, where I was a bit older, so I was about 37, 38, the morning sickness was bad.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, it wasn't even set to the first trimester. It went pretty much all the way up to 5 months, stopped for a couple of weeks, and then came back again. Then I also had gestational diabetes on top of that too. So
you know what's good for that?
What is?
Avocado gate. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh gosh, the famous avocado gate.
Avocado on toast, Meghan and Catherine, and how I think Meghan was accused of fueling drought by eating her favourite snack. Oh my God, I don't think anyone can cause that. But that's actually meant to be really good for morning sickness. It helps with blood pressure. It's rich in magnesium. I'm a massive fan of magnesium for so many different reasons. It helps with sleep, anxiety, joints, immune, constipation. The older you get, sometimes that becomes an issue. But yeah, did you try that avocado?
Do you know, I didn't try avocado.
Do you even like avocado?
I love avocado. I think for me, when I was pregnant with my son, I was just busy working.
Right.
I was working in an investment bank at the time. So I was just getting up and trying to just get what was convenient. And I find sometimes with avocados, as much as I love them, but you always have to find the one that's perfectly ripe at the same.
Or you've got to leave it there.
Or you've got to leave it on the side. And then I would just
leave
forget
it too long.
Yeah. And then it's just gone off.
Soft.
And then it starts to crumple. And it's like, oh no, I know. But no, I didn't. I can't say I did. Did you?
Do you know, on my first pregnancy, I had morning sickness. Well, they call it morning sickness, but it really doesn't. It's any time of the day.
Any time of the day, yeah.
For the first 3 months, I think it was. And that was me and my hubby. We used to go to our favourite cafe. I was going to say where, but no, don't. Our favourite cafe. And we used to get like a proper fry up, your chips, your bacon, your eggs, and you can get that all the way through the day. And that became a problem. I couldn't enter the building. It was the smell of anything greasy would turn the tummy. And because he was very much, I need to go. So I would go sit across from him. Yeah, he needed that. He needed that fix. I'd go and I'd sit across from him while he'd have a full English breakfast in front of him. And just kind of held it down at anything like vomiting and stuff until he had finished a bit. Right, let's go. So I did have a little bit of morning sickness, but for the rest of the pregnancy, it was actually pretty smooth sailing. I think that from a medical perspective, I did have preeclampsia, which that's a complication but I don't think it's that common. I might be wrong, but
I think it's becoming more. I'm hearing it more and more actually.
Often.
Yeah. I am.
And I was like swollen. I think somebody called my ankles cankles. I think that's the thing. I've never heard it before I was pregnant. And I literally had like elephant trunks. I couldn't get my feet into any shoes. I used to go around to my sister's about 2 sizes bigger than me. And I used to go around to hers and she was, I gave you a pair of shoes. I'm not giving you another. They don't come back in any usable form. So, I had a pretty tricky pregnancy. Morning sickness, I think, was easy the first time. But in both pregnancies, I had preeclampsia. So that was pretty hard. And it's quite
that's scary.
It's quite scary for mum and baby as well. There is a lot of you are induced early because of the complications that it can cause. And then you're monitored quite a bit after for about a week. I know for the first pregnancy, I was in hospital for a whole week after that, being monitored just to make sure there were no after complications as well. But yeah, 2 beauties I've got.
So after the pregnancy comes the D-Day, delivery day.
The delivery day, birth.
Births.
How was yours?
My birth, so having had 3, so all 3 different. First was in maternity ward, natural. Actually, no, not maternity ward, delivery ward. Second was at a birthing centre. So I had the whole birthing pool experience.
You were brave.
I was brave, but it was probably by far the best experience ever. Reason being, less interference, midwifery led. I had my own space. You can play your own music.
Right.
The room was nicely laid out. I could get in and out of the pool. And funny story with that is as well, when going through the whole advanced labour stage, when it was all really kicking off and kicking in, they do say to you, you've got to make a decision. You either stay in the pool or you get out. And I said I'm going to sit in the pool to have her because I really wanted that whole experience, water birth and pulling her out as well.
Oh.
But just at that, when is it almost the crowning stage? That is so painful.
Oh my gosh!
I said I can't sit down. So I stood up, leaned over, had to then go through, getting the baby out, and that part where the head comes out and you just have to stay. You can't do any more pushing because you just got to be careful. I remember then putting my head in between my legs and I saw her head. And as I looked at her, I could see her head turning from side to side slightly. And my ex was at the side laughing, saying she's turning her head, looking around. So that was beautiful. That made it a really pleasant experience. And then for my son, I had
I just want to go back to this birthing experience because that I could not do.
That sounds like your nightmare.
I really couldn't. But did you do any painkillers at all, or was that all completely gas and air, or not even?
I had I can't remember what they're called, but they're the kind of drugs that take the edge off. So they're the ones that are not completely, they're not like the epidural.
Right. Okay.
I think it was Meptid and there was something else. So it takes the edge off. You still feel your contractions,
Right.
but it just makes it easier to
Did it?
deal with. Yeah, because it meant I could rest a bit without feeling like I needed to climb the wall. Whereas the epidural completely knocks the pain out. Yeah.
That's me. Seriously. I tell you what, because you know my experience, because we have this bit where we talked about what's the role of the bloke in this whole experience. Mm-hmm. And for me, I was very clear I'm doing the epidural because, the whole reason why I didn't want to have kids, because the pain, I was going, there's no way that I can handle the pain. And I said from the start, I'm having an epidural. When we got into the birthing room, I remember this lady coming in and she was very airy-fairy and she was like, you can do it. You don't need anything. Da-da-da-da. Think of the sun. Think of being on the beach. And I looked at my husband and I said, you have one job. I said, get me my epidural and get this woman out of here. And he was brilliant. He actually, ushered her out and in came my medication. I was like, now I can rest. But I think the guys can feel a little bit lost in that situation. I think getting them involved, either holding your hands, talking. I know I had him on one side for the first birth and I had my sister on the other and them two talking across me. Quite entertaining, but it was I enjoyed having the epidural. I felt I was able to enjoy the experience without the pain. I know that isn't everybody's cup of tea, but that was definitely mine.
For my first, just quickly picking up on that, I did request the epidural towards the end.
Okay.
And
it's too late.
And it was too late.
Yeah.
By the time I requested it, they said, okay, we'll have to check with the anaesthetist. And I literally, when they first checked me, I was only like 4 centimetres dilated. And I think at that point they were going to allow me to have it. But because it took so long to get the specialist round, by the time they checked me again, it was like, nope, you're 8 centimetres, you're going in. And I was like, damn it, because at that point it was so painful. Anyway, but
I think we have another message actually from another lady in London called Natasha, who was lovely enough to share her pregnancy birthing experience. Do you have it there, Lou?
I do.
I had quite a smooth pregnancy. My biggest complaint was the no wine ban. But other than that, I actually didn't mind being pregnant. I neither loved it nor hated it. I just kind of got along with it and I was okay. The labour, on the other hand, didn't go too well. I'd hoped for a natural labour and a water birth and minimal interference as possible. I just wanted to go in there, get the job done, and that was that. Well, I had that completely wrong. So I had 3 sweeps. I was induced. I had to have my waters broken by a midwife. Well, actually, the head midwife on duty, because the midwife that I had couldn't actually break them because it seemed to be that it was a complicated job, which seemed everything to do with me during that labour was complicated. Unfortunately, my baby then pooed in the sack. So by that point, it wasn't going very well. I wasn't dilating. So it was lots of waiting around, and then the lovely examinations, which kept confirming that I wasn't dilating. So, I kept hearing hormone drip flying around, and I'd heard quite a lot of horror stories about that. So I was trying to avoid that. And then it came to a point of, okay, well, I'm going to have to. So this was absolutely horrendous. I'd never experienced any pain like that before. I tried to avoid the epidural, but I just couldn't with that. I took it for some time and then I was like, actually, no, there's no way I can keep this up. My baby then was getting quite distressed. And so we ended with an emergency C-section. So yeah, it wasn't a great experience. It always quite a blur, to be honest with you. I've actually had to ask my husband for most of these details because I can't really remember much of them. But you know, we got through it. We got a beautiful baby girl called Florence out of it, who weighs 7 pounds 3. So yeah, we got there. Would I do it again? Yeah, I think I've forgotten quite a lot of it. So I probably would put myself through it again, but not for some time yet.
I love that.
I love that.
I think that's why a lot of women go again. They can't remember the first time.
I think there's meant to be a natural thing that kicks in to stop you from remembering how horrendous
Really,
it is
some hormone.
to make you want to go and have it again.
So she didn't have a straightforward birth. It seemed like it was pretty complicated. I know she was talking about some hormone that she didn't want to have because she had heard friends talking. I always think that's kind of the don't listen to other people. I think they create fear around everybody's situation is different. So they create fear around something that they had experienced, but it's not necessarily that would have been her experience as well. Would you think?
No, I agree, because I made the mistake of watching one born every minute.
I love that.
Well,
that got me through.
I loved it. Get me through. I remember I was within the last month of my first and I watched it and I was like, what have I signed up to? No. I was petrified. I was really, really scared.
And I used that as being informative. I took notes, do's and don'ts. I had a booklet and I handed that to my husband. If I die here today, this is what I want.
So coming back to the original question, has it been worth it?
Yeah, I absolutely do think it was worth it, and not as scary as maybe I had initially thought for myself. And I think every woman should experience it if they want a child. And I think it can be a very happy experience as well. I've said experience about 4 times there. It is an experience.
But it's a great experience. But I think with myself, I wouldn't swap it for the world. You know, I had 3 different pregnancies, 3 different types of births. And with all the stretch marks and the failings now of my pelvic floor, I would do it again.
Fantastic.
Thanks for listening to the Big Chat Small Talk with Bernie and Louise.
Follow us on Instagram at Big Chat Small Talk.